Good evening, beer lovers and Brotherhood of Barley. Tonight, I'm going to do my second Smackdown series. Hurricane High Gravity versus Natty Daddy 8%. Two malt liquor products in the AB family. Very closely matched. Only 2 calories separate the two, 183 versus 185. They're only a tenth of a percentage ABV, 8.1% for the Hurricane, 8% even for Natty Daddy. So it should be a pretty fair fight. Friday night, what better time than to have a malt liquor brawl? You know, this could get ugly, but we'll see what happens. Talk a little bit about, I've got mine in the freezer for a couple of minutes, a little while. Just talk a little bit about malt liquor, a rather confusing and meaningless term, to put it mildly. And malt liquors as a beer category or a style are probably the most maligned of any, the ugly stepchild of the beer family. The often confusing term malt liquor comes from a lot of it comes from the varying state laws. We have 50 states, we have 50 sets of state beer laws. So that some of the confusion comes in there, and just the terminology, malt liquor. I mean, take for instance, compare that with barley wine. Okay, literally, it's made from barley. It approaches the ABV of a wine. You start talking about 13, 14%, so it makes perfect sense. Malt liquor, okay, certainly the malt applies, but the liquor part is really where it gets to sort of run into the ditch. When some states a malt liquor is a 5% product, it's a far cry from any liquor. And I mean, even in some states, any alcoholic beverage used with use of fermented grains and water can be called a malt liquor. So you could call an NA beer a non-intoxicating malt liquor. And I've got a statute here I want to read, a little bit of legalese here. This is a Colorado statute. Malt liquors include beer and shall be construed to mean any beverage obtained by the alcoholic fermentation of any infusion or decoction of barley, malt, hops, or any other similar products, or any combination thereof, in water containing more than 3 1/5% of alcohol by weight. 3 1/5, 3.2. Which if you convert that to ABV, would be an even 4%. You multiply it by 1.25. Because by volume, ethanol is less dense than water. For the reverse, if you convert it from alcohol by weight to ABV, if you do it the other way around, you would multiply it by 0.80 to convert from ABV to alcohol by weight. So the 4 would then go back down to the 3.2. So to highlight the confusion about this. And one day I was looking at the Oxford Dictionary for beer. In the search bar, I typed in the term malt liquor. Nothing came up. Not a zilch. Nothing at all. Which only sort of adds to the confusing nature of the term. But as I mentioned, on the tail of the tape of these two, I mentioned very similar in calorie count. The ABV only a 10th percentage apart. And the ingredient list on these two are identical. They use 8 ingredients. The very same. One red flag for me as I was looking at the ingredients list on these two were the fact that malt is not the second ingredient behind water. We all know water, the number one ingredient in beer, but the fact that malt does not follow, to me, is a little bit of a red flag. On these two, malt is the fourth ingredient. It comes after water, corn syrup, then malt, and then the fifth ingredient is rice. So both of these contain 3 adjuncts. Maybe they should be called high gravity adjunct malt liquors. The use of 3 adjuncts. I've never heard anyone say what the corn is that Anheuser-Busch uses. Probably it's a flake maize or either corn grits. Never seen it officially noted. It's also a possibility they could use a cornstarch or a corn flour, but it's probably one of those two. And everybody knows about the corn syrup, which they decried for using it. Said, we don't use it in our Bud Light, but they have plenty of products that do have the corn syrup. So that goes to show what they think of the intelligence of the average Bud Light drinker. Not a lot, because anybody with a modicum of beer knowledge knows that was a really, that was a just gasping for an advertising campaign. Why don't they test their product against Miller Lite per se to see which one actually tastes better, rather than getting into some minutia about the Bud Light drinker? They come with a Bud Light swipe, they get the 12-pack, and they're on their way to drink it. They're not thinking too much about the ingredients in it. But that is one thing about the fact that malt is not the second ingredient. And for all of the Molson Coors high gravity products I've seen, malt does follow water in the ingredient list, for whatever that's worth. And also for the high gravity products, the AB products always tend to have much less calorie counts. These are 185, 183 respectively, as I mentioned. For example, Steel Reserve 8.1 clocks in at 222 calories. That's a pretty sizable jump from the calorie counts in these. And if you look on the ice beer side, the calorie counts are very low for Bud Ice, Natty Ice, Busch Ice, 130 range. For a 5.9, 5.5%, that seems awful low. But the fact that these fermentables they use, the grains, might be less of in calorie content than actual malt. You have to use a fermentable source with these. It's either going to be malt or some other fermentable grain. Plus, they can use enzymes, which will help accelerate the fermentation process to really amp it up, because you got to create the alcohol first and foremost. But with that out of the way, I'll grab my 2 malt liquors from the bullpen and we'll get on with the Smackdown. Let's see if I got right here. The 2 competitors tonight, we have in this corner, category 5, Hurricane High Gravity. This would be considered their, and I use this term loosely, high-end malt liquor. And in the other corner, we have even 8% Natty Daddy. I like the can on this one. Sort of the teal light blue and the red stripe on it. So these are the two competitors, and I will pour them and we'll come out swinging. By the way, here was the you mentioned the term malt liquor goes back as far as 1690 in England as a general term to encompass beer and ales. It first came into use in North America in 1842 in a patent issued by the Canadian government regarding beer. The first brewer of malt liquor in the United States was in 1948. Clicks, C-L-I-X, was the name of the brewery. But the first popularly successful marketed and sold malt liquor in the United States in the early 50s was Country Club Malt Liquor by Getz Brewery of St. Joseph, Missouri, St. Joseph. And I happen to have a can of that. It's one of my go-tos in this malt liquor category. Country Club Malt Liquor. 5.6%, high drinkability. I really like Country Club. If you haven't checked out, go look at some of the old commercials for Country Club where they're in a country club setting, and the lady of the house is serving. She brings around the malt liquor. She's wearing pearls and a nice dress. Definitely an upscale milieu, not something associated with malt liquor in the later years. Quite a contrast in advertising, and quite a contrast in the culture in which it was presented. So, like I say, I'll pour these and we'll get down to the drinking. For these types of endeavors, I like to use these little taster tubes. They have excellent optical clarity. You can see if there's any differences between the appearance of the beers. It stays cold. They're thin. You can develop a pretty good head for comparison purposes. Now, I really like to use these little things. The Natty Daddy and the Hurricane. Just a second. I've got a guest I want to add to the stream now. Alex, the beer master. He's going to hang out, so I'll let him on here. Hello, Alex.
What's up, William? I'm just letting you do your thing. I wasn't going to talk till you're done your beer thing.
Okay, I'll get on with my taste test, and we'll chat a little bit later. I'll get on with that. One thing I noticed here was the Hurricane is a little bit darker than the Natty Daddy. It's a little more goldish, where the Natty Daddy is a little more of a straw color. But they both have a nice stream of bubbles. I'd had these in the freezer for a little while. Cold temperature will minimize the amount of head, they have, and these don't have a whole lot of head anyway sometimes. But anyway, these are the two competitors. I'll start out with the more straw colored one, the Natty Daddy. One thing I noticed about these, this is very smooth, not picking up any DMS, none of the corny mixed vegetable component. It has for a malt liquor, it has a pretty clean taste. As expected, hop bitterness is minimal, if any. I think what substitutes for any bitterness, it does have a little bit of an alcohol burn. It sort of substitutes that back in for the lack of hop bitterness in these. You do pick up a little bit of burn in this, but I don't mind that. These are alcoholic beverages. It's 8%. You sort of expect to get a little bit of alcohol from it. So to me, that's not a detriment to it. But I tell you, pretty smooth. My palate dried out a little bit, so I'll try the Hurricane High Gravity here, which is a little bit darker in appearance. It's more of an amber, which usually suggests that they use a little bit darker malt, maybe a little bit more of a roasted malt. And so I'll take a sip on. Slightly fruity on the nose, like a little bit of apple, but nothing funky. Wow. Not surprisingly, these are very close. But like the Natty Daddy, I'm not picking up anything off-putting, funky about it. Smooth, pretty, I use the word loosely, balanced for a malt liquor. It's a warm night here in North Carolina. We're starting to get into the heat of the summer, some humidity. These are actually pretty enjoyable. They're cold, but they're not ice cold or it numbs your taste buds. But I'll take another sip of the Hurricane. Another thing that's coming through on these is I mentioned about the fact that malt is listed as a fourth ingredient in these two products. They aren't quite as malty as some of the Molson Coors products. They have a little more of a malt flavor. This is more of a generalized, it's grainy, obviously fruitiness, graininess, but not a definitive malt flavor nearly as much. But they are, like I say, very smooth for 8 and 8.1%. Drinkability is a relative term, but for these malt liquors, these are quite drinkable. So I'll finish this, and I'm gonna have to take another round on these. I'm not surprised. These are very close. Do you have a beer tonight?
No, that's why I haven't. That's why I said I just popped in. and I'll talk to you when you're done.
Okay. Have you had these two products, Alex?
No, I've been wanting to try them. Heck yeah.
Really? Yeah.
I mean, I heard they're not as good, but hey, you won't know until you try, right?
Right. One reason I picked these up was the fact that I saw the beer truck there at the convenience store, and they were unloading some stuff, and these happen to be very fresh. Both of these are only a couple of weeks old, so they don't use a code date on these. No Best Buy or canned on. They use a Julian code, which is the like today would be the 156th day of the year.
Mm.
So it would be 2156 on the bottom of the can. I got pretty proficient at reading the. When I started getting into craft beer, I had to sort of learn. It's sort of like going to the CIA or espionage because some of these are very, very, very difficult to decipher. But I've done pretty good with that. And so these are like I said, very fresh, 12-ounce cans. So drinking both of these, you're only getting less than 1 ounce from a 25-ounce can. So that was the reason I thought that on a Friday night I would just sort of do a little taste test between these two.
So what I'm getting at here is that you are not doing the Thursday thing anymore. You're doing it on Fridays now.
No, I put the Thursday on hold this week. I'm going to start a Final Four ale tournament. That's my plans. It will be IPAs. And I throw it in Dale's Pale Ale as a wild card because to me, it's more an IPA than an APA. So in one bracket, I had Lagunitas IPA versus Voodoo Ranger. In the other bracket, I had Bell's Two-Hearted Ale versus the Dale's Pale Ale. And those two, like in my other tournament, would advance to the final round and maybe have a consolation round in between.
Nice.
That's the one I thought about doing next, which is a little bit of a 180 from doing adjunct lagers, get into something of a different style, something with some hop presence, a little more flavor, a little more character-wise. So I thought that would be good to get into. But no, I haven't. For this week, I just held off this week because I had to go have some testing at the hospital. That's the reason I didn't do it Thursday. So that my health still takes priority.
Of course.
As well as I am, but that's the reason I didn't start that this Thursday. So
so basically, you're doing Dale's Pale Ale versus what?
Bell's Two-Hearted. That would be one semifinal. The other semifinal would be Lagunitas IPA versus Voodoo Ranger from New Belgium.
So next week is the Dale's Pale Ale and the Bell's Two-Hearted.
Probably. I haven't. It's not etched in stone yet, but that probably would be who I'm going to have. So I'll pour another round of these and
there you go.
Make a determination.
It's so cool how you decide to do these tournaments, even if I'm not here and I don't drink a beer with you or I sit here. I'm happy that you still do your tournament, even though I don't drink a beer at this moment.
Yeah, I sort of like all these beers have been reviewed thousands of times. It's just another take on them to do a little bit. I used to be a sports writer. I was in journalism, so we always had to come up with headlines.
Oh.
And storylines, creating stuff. And I've got beer ideas running out of my nostrils. I mean, I'm times it just pops into my mind some of this stuff for better or worse.
Nice.
So that's sort of the origin of that.
That's pretty cool, my friend. And I mean, yes, it's kind of strange that all these years you didn't drink beer as much, and now look at you now, you drink beer, and then all of a sudden you have your other channel that you just comment with, but then you also have this channel now that you make videos on. It's freaking amazing that 1 minute you're not a YouTuber. You just never know what you're going to find.
Okay.
William. Go ahead. Go ahead, William. We'll talk later.
Okay. Like I said, the Natty Daddy golden appearance. Give us stream bubbles. Yeah, the fruitiness and this comes across as a little bit like an apple. It's not that. I have had some of the cheaper products like some City Brewing that have sort of a wine.
Hmm.
I think one of the worst beers I ever drank was called Milwaukee's Special Reserve. It was by City Brewing, and it had a wine taste to it that was just funky. It reminded me of Kool-Aid when I was a child, drinking Kool-Aid.
Wow.
It really, I mean, it was an off flavor, but this one, it does have a little bit of fruitiness, like I said, to complement the graininess, but nothing off-putting. I mean, mouthfeel, and these are medium. It's not really syrupy thickness. More heft, more body substance than you get with an adjunct lager, but certainly not anything off-putting here. I like the little bit of the extra punch to it, the little oomph that you get with a malt liquor. But for 8%, like I say, the drinkability factor on these is quite high. Switch back to the little more of a amber, the Hurricane Category 5.
Now that's the original Hurricane. That's not the Hurricane High Gravity, is it?
This is the high gravity, the 8% version.
Oh, that's the okay. That's
Yeah,
the
the 6% one, which we don't get in this area, my area, is in a black label. It's like Anheuser-Busch. They have 3 ice beers and they have 3 malt liquors. It's like a power trio. It's like Rush, the Rush of malt liquor. They have King Cobra and these 2 products. On the other side, they have Busch Ice, Natty Ice, and Bud Ice. So they have these categories. They don't need 3 of each, but it crowds out the competition on the beer aisles.
true that.
It's like Coke and Pepsi. It's a fight for space. It's a fight for customers and a fight for shelf space. So that's the reason that they run these. Like I said, these 2 here are very, very, I went into it, first time I've drank these 2 side by side. Going into it, I thought that the Hurricane was a superior product. But after I drank these side by side, the Natty Daddy is holding its own pretty well. I'll finish up the Hurricane here. I was so focused on these 2 parts here, I hadn't been displaying the comments. I'd like to thank Nina Yorte, who has been on here the entire time, just about making a stream of comments, and I do have I did post a link here. If anybody wants to hop on here and just talk about beer for a few minutes, I mean, I'll hang out with, but I'll post a few of these here. I'll make a copy. I like the little 5-ounce glasses too. I drank a flight of beers at one of our local breweries, and they gave me to go. At the end, I asked them, I offered to buy them because if you order them online, you have to buy like a restaurant supply amount. I'm just one person. I just want a few of it. And they gave them to me, the 5-ounce glasses. They work very well for if you're doing multiple beers. Like I say, you're getting a fresh example each time you pour it. You're getting a nice little head. So for testing purposes, they're ideal. What's happening, Beer Master?
Oh, nothing. Nothing. I'm just letting you do your thing and all
Okay.
that, and then I guess you can talk to me whenever you're done because I don't like to interfere with people,
Okay.
especially when they're in their thought of mine.
Hmm.
At least I try not.
This is not rocket science, Alex. But I appreciate your politeness. This is not.
You're welcome, my friend.
Yeah.
He
I think Buford Pusser would approve of this one.
probably would, but he wouldn't approve of the moonshine. Uh,
This is not moonshine. This is a legally sold product. So
right, they're
we won't
beers,
get
but
in
I'm just
trouble.
saying.
Yeah,
But
we won't get in trouble with this.
no,
Absolutely, these products do not play nice at room temperature. Drink them when they're cold and crisp, not ice cold. I don't want to have a slushy. I have seen people when they pour them on reviews, it would be like a slushy. I mean, it numbs the taste buds, and after that, what the heck? It doesn't matter. I like it cold and crisp. There's a certain sweet spot for every beer style, and I've drank enough of these to know pretty much how I can dial it in, by how long you leave it in the fridge, how long you leave it sitting out, or you can dial in to get the maximum amount of flavor and refreshment. With these, the refreshment plays a big part of it because even if you drink these close to ice cold, they have enough flavor to cut through the temperature because they're sweet. I would not say that either one of these are cloyingly sweet. They definitely have a sweet punch, but that's what I like about these two. It goes back to the smoothness. I'm not finding cloying sweetness in these. So that's definitely sometimes with beers it's important. It's what they don't do. It's what they do. The negatives can cancel any positives you have. So oftentimes, that's why I've been surprised sometimes when craft brewers will like light beers because they realize the difficulty in brewing those. And if you can brew a light beer without adding any off-putting flaws or anything, that's a pretty good achievement. And they say that's better than no flavor is better than bad flavor because you're getting the refreshment aspect of it. And we have a Commerce Aussie, a natural ice, one of AB InBev's one of their popular ice beer products. I've had that. I've had the old Natty Ice quite a few times. I do prefer some of the Molson Coors products over Natty Ice. I may sometime do a Smackdown Natty Ice versus maybe the Beast, Milwaukee's Best Ice. I like to do these like apples to apples. These are products you might cross shop when you go to the store. You might buy one or the other. If you're not cross shopping, then maybe you should consider it because of the similarities between them. That's basically why I say I'm calling you out. I think I'm better than you, Smackdown, because these are comparable products. It's nothing that's that idea.
I've tried Natty Ice actually, William, and it's a good beer. I'm looking forward to trying a lot of the ice beers and see which ones are delish.
Okay.
So I would love to do that.
Caught up with the comment section there, and I'll take the last sip of the hurricane here.
All right.
This was warm just a bit while I was chatting with you, and now I'm getting a little bit more of the alcohol burn.
Mm.
I say these are very volatile as far as drinking temperatures go, and the burn is lingering now. I'm getting a afterburn, so
I mean, those kind of beers, you want to keep them cold. You don't want them warm because then I hear that they're nasty. Ugh.
they can run in the ditch pretty quickly. But like I say, for using, that's why for the taste test, I'm using these little taster tubes because they stay at the optimum temperature for the most part. This was just the last sip of this one. It happened to have set up while I tried to get caught up with the comments. And so I've got a little bit more in these two cans here. I'll finish it up here and then give a verdict.
I hope to one day meet you in person, William. That'd be freaking so cool.
Yeah, that would be nice, Alex.
Sure would be. But I got a feeling when I do meet you, rather if you come here or I don't know, I don't. It'd be kind of hard for me to come to your house, I think, but I don't know. Um, if you ever come here, either way, I have a feeling you're going to be the same person I know on the internet, but it'll just be cool to meet you in person. Just like Bumpy, he was just the same person, and it was awesome.
I like Bumpy.
He's cool.
I've gotten to know him pretty well the last few weeks. He did every round of the adjunct lager tournament with me, and coming from the craft beer side, I appreciate his knowledge and his perspective for taste testing. He's coming at from a little different, angle than I am. So, and the only person I've actually met from the beer talk is John Anile.
Yes, you did.
He came to visit me last year in the end of March, when I had finished with my surgery.
Yes.
It wasn't determined yet that I'll have to do chemo. And he caught me at a good time right there, that couple week window before they determined I had to do the chemo. And we got a private brewery tour at Foothills. He got to drink the Sexual Chocolate Foothills Imperial Stout. And I got to eat some North Carolina barbecue, Western North Carolina barbecue. And so I had an enjoyable time there, and really enjoyed meeting him after becoming sort of friends online and stuff. But when you meet a person, actually meet them, it's different. I'm sort of old school. Social media is something rather new to me, relatively speaking.
Yes.
But where you have the personal contact with someone still means a lot, and that was a very good meeting time I had with him.
And I don't want to be mean, but Bumpy's my first YouTuber that I've actually met up in person.
Really?
Yes. Good.
Unfortunately, we're sort of spread out across the country, somewhat, but sometimes it'd be nice sometimes if we had like a regional meet, if you could pick a central location. Be like, we like to have these conventions and stuff.
Yeah, YouTube conventions.
Yeah. Things like that would be nice.
Be kind of cool, but we can't do that for right now, though.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think I have my verdict now.
Uh-oh. Let's see.
Smackdown.
Uh-oh.
Like I said, going into this, I thought the Hurricane is considered, quote unquote, their high-end malt liquor. But after drinking these two side by side, the Natty Daddy really held its end up here. So I'm going to call this one a draw. A 10-round draw. So I think the Smackdown will be denied in this round. Natty Daddy really held its own. Last night, I tried to do I bought 2 cans each of these. They were 59 cents a piece. I tried to do a blind taste test, but the fact that I didn't have someone helping me, an assistant, I can't afford to pay someone to help me with the beer tastings. But anyway, I could tell right away that the Hurricane was darker in appearance, so that voided the blind taste test. I could tell right away. So it wouldn't be fair to come on here and present these as a blind taste test. I mean, I could tell there's a 1 shade difference. And like I say, the Natty Daddy really held its end up here. if anything, there is only the slightest bit, a slight bit more flavor in the Hurricane, and I attributed that to the darker malt they use. It is a little bit darker, a tad roastier, because I mentioned these are not the maltiest beers to begin with by using 3 adjuncts. Now the yeast is going to eat up the corn syrup for the most part, but you're still left with 2 grainy adjuncts. So, but they are so close that, like I said, I have to call this a draw. This is definitely not a Smackdown. So I've got a little bit of newfound respect for the Natty Daddy. Actually, I know a lot of people rip on these malt liquors and malign them, but I drink all types of beers, and on occasion, this wouldn't be a go-to for me. It was an outlier occasionally. I like a malt liquor. I like the punch it gives you, that sweet punch, the flavor. It's not complex, but it's a nice step up from some of the adjunct lagers. I drink a lot of the adjunct lagers as my go-tos, especially during the summertime.
Right.
They've got more flavor than light beer, yet they're not. Yet they're still. To me, those are the original light beers. Miller Lite and Bud are the light beers, quote unquote. The lightest of the light. And on occasion, I'll drink one of those, but I'll gladly sacrifice the few calories to get the more flavor from an adjunct lager. So,
I've actually tried Old English 800, and that was a pretty good beer. I like the sweetness of it.
Old English is a 5.9%. That would be a good challenge like that versus the Busch Ice or Natty Ice. They're both 5%. That would be because then you're getting in. The thing about these, I mentioned the similarities. They're both brewed by the same. They're both AB InBev products, and they definitely have that AB InBev DNA in them. There's a certain characteristics that these beers display across their product line. If you drink enough of them, they have a certain DNA. Like the Molson Coors beers have a nice. Seem like they always have that nice lacing. But the Molson Coors beers, the swirly lacing. The head retention seems a little bit better than some of the AB InBev products. The head retention a little bit better because it's a little less fizzy and a little more crackly. You get a nice beer, you get a crackly head, which retains. It's almost like memory foam.
Mm-hmm.
That's the quality of a good beer, and I think sometimes the Molson Coors products have a little bit more of an advantage in some of their characteristics than the AB InBev. That's just my own personal experience. I've drank quite a few of both of them.
And there's other beers I want to try. They're called Ice House and Ice House Edge. They're all different, obviously, malt liquor beers, and I want to try them, but it's kind of hard if you can't get them.
Ice House was the first American brewed ice beer.
Oh. Nice.
Labatt owns the patent for the ice beer process. I may do an examination of some of the ice beers because you can read the language in the Tax and Trade Bureau of the United States government. It dictates exactly how these ice beers have to be brewed. The percentage of ice content can be removed, and then they have to replace that with water after they've removed the crystals.
Wow.
It's very legalistic, but I worked at a law firm one period of my career, and I like the legalese stuff, so I don't mind that, getting down into the nitty gritty of it like that. But well, like I say, I think this one, a 10-round draw. I think the Natty Daddy held its own quite well, and so on to the next Smackdown. Not sure what it'll be next, but I'll come up with something.
You always do.
I'll come up with something, but I thank you for joining me, Alex. We can chat a little while offline if you'd like to.
All right.
Appreciate the comments here tonight. That's the reason I don't record these. I go live, and if I do a solo, that's fine. If someone wants to join, that's fine too. But I like to get a little bit of feedback from the people. That's the reason I'm not recording these. I prefer to get a little bit of feedback from people, let them see it in real time and respond to it like that. So
but it's also cool that you can interact with your actual audience.
Right. I like the real time, the interaction. like that. So that's the reason I'm not recording these. I'm going live. And if somebody wants to join me, I did this on short notice tonight, so I didn't anticipate many people would probably have a hurricane and a natty daddy on hand to be able to join me for that part of it. So I don't mind that. I don't mind that, but I do sort of like to get the interaction from the live commenters. And
Now you did say though, William, I could join you if I don't have beer.
absolutely, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome anytime. I consider you friends, so that's not.
Unless you said unless a whole bunch of people came on and that have beer, I'll just stay in the basement until things get done. Right.
On a Friday night, I thought this would be a good time to do this.
Yeah.
Like on short notice. Like I said, I picked up a couple cans of these and I drank a couple last night and they were fresh and I wanted, try them at their peak, so to speak. And we have a comment here from Commerce Ozzy. Enjoy malt liquors also. Mickey's King Cobra 0800.
I've had Old English 800, but I've never had them.
Those. And of those three, I probably would rate those. Let's see. Mickey's first, 0800 second, and King Cobra third. Probably. And I'm talking about, I had the 6% King Cobra, which to me was a little bit bland. I was expecting a little bit more punch from it. I think some of these AB InBev products at the lower ABVs, that smoothness to me is a little bit sort of a mild blandness, maybe. Each person interprets things differently. But when you get up to the 8% like these, that smoothness became an asset. I thought it was an attribute. The fact they were so drinkable, that smooth. So it's like it sort of flipped. I'm actually enjoying these higher ABV, AB InBev malt liquors more so than I enjoy some of their ice beers in the 5.5 to 6% range or their malt liquors at lower gravities. So that's just the way it goes.
Well, Natty Ice is not, I think it's 5.9%. That's
5.9. Bud Ice is a cold filtered sort of a quote draft beer version. It's 5.5%. And the Busch Ice, which is hugely popular in my area, Busch Ice is sold $5.99 for a 12-pack.
Never had Busch Ice yet. I cannot.
Last year it got as cheap as $4.72 for a 12-pack. The two distributors in this area were dueling. They had a price war. And it got as cheap as $4.72 at Walmart for a 12-pack of Busch Ice. And I picked up a 12-pack last. That was in 2018 when that happened, because last year I had a health issue, wasn't drinking. But anyway, and it was like 6 days old. Very rarely do you get a macro beer that's like a week or less old, but they just put them out on the shelf, and it was $4.72 for a 12-pack. So therefore, the Molson Coors distributor had to drop the price on their Milwaukee's Ice. So they were battling that for some time. I was wondering how low it could go. Eventually, it sort of settled out, but they did have a price war on those two products there for a time. And we have a comment, Colt 45. I'm lucky because in my area, I can get the Colt 45 double malt liquor, which has the diagram and it has the slash in the can, which is half blue, half white. I gave John Neely a 40 of the Colt 45 double malt. And he took it back to Georgia, and he did a review on his channel last springtime for the Colt 45 double malt.
Is it a white can with blue writing on it? I think I've had that.
It's a white slash blue can. It's a slash label, half white, half blue.
I don't know if I've ever had that, but I've had the Colt 45. I could tell you that.
Yeah, the double malt. And I've also had their Colt 45 high gravity.
They also have that too, but I haven't had them.
I was disappointed in.
Oh.
It was 8.5%, but that's one like I talk about the off flavor sometimes, the DMS. It had a very strong DMS character. It was like a sort of a sour corn that had set out too long. I didn't like it. I thought it was definitely showing a flaw there, which I didn't pick up from either one of these. So I'd much prefer the regular, in that brand, I much prefer the regular Colt 45 or the double malt. So, like I said, when you drink these regularly, you sort of get a frame of reference. It's like your brain begins to work like a computer. You got that RAM, the random access memory, so you can speak about these beers when you drank them, more than a couple of times. And that's sort of like like if I throw out any name of a beer to you, Alex, there would be something pop in your mind immediately because you have a memory bank which you store in information after drinking these beers. But sometimes when you drink them side by side, that gets a little confused because all of a sudden you get a little bit confused because it's not falling into it's not falling into place like you think it should, maybe because you're not picking out one thing out of another, and that's where the confusion sort of comes in sometimes with taste testing.
I I've actually tried Coors Extra Gold, and that's a good beer.
I like the Coors Extra Gold. It's almost like a baby malt liquor. It has a nice, rich gold appearance. It has more flavor than the the Coors Banquet, I think.
Oh yeah, because it's a lager. So I mean,
But they're the same ABV, but they use a different malt
yes,
in the Extra Gold, which a little, like I said, it's the darker malt, which gives it a little more fuller flavor, a little more of a roastiness to it.
right.
I like it a lot, but I can only get that on road trips. So the next time I'm in the area, I'll pick up another 12-pack of the, and I like a Red Dog too.
Well, you can get
John Neely, when he visited me, we did a review in real time of the Red Dog. We drank them about 3 feet from where I'm sitting right now in my kitchen.
wow.
And he liked the Red Dog, and I bought a 30-pack on a road trip. And I think they used 5 different malts in that beer. It's 4.8%. I think it's better than the Miller High Life. I think it's better than a lot of the other products, but it's only limited. Like so many brands, it's limited distribution.
I've looked it up. I have Red Dog. Let me see something here.
That's
let me see.
That's the fly in the ointment for many of these brands is the fact that you can't find them.
Red Dog beer.
That's why when I do the tournaments, I try to pick beers that everybody can get. You can't do a tournament with a panel of testers if everybody can't get there's the Red Dog, sure enough.
Okay. So make sure.
That was a beer that was highly promoted by Miller Coors. And then, like so many others over time, it fell out of favor and is now just a beer of limited distribution. But for those who can find it, I think you would thoroughly enjoy it.
Is it is it like a malt liquor itself as well?
It's an adjunct lager.
It's just a stronger beer.
No, it's not stronger. It's just it fits right in there with the Bud. It's 4.8% ABV. So
Okay.
it fits right in there with your Miller High Life, your Budweiser, your Schlitz, Coors Banquet. But I thought it had a little bit, because of the use of the different malt varieties, it had a little bit something extra going for it. I know when I opened that 30-pack and drank the first one, I said, wow, this is really good. I wish I could get this locally on a regular basis. I would add this one to my drinking.
You're drinking a wheelhouse. Yeah, wheelhouse of beers. That you get.
My roster, I definitely would add this. But I've had many of these over time. Carling Black Label, Blatz, Old Style. I've had just about all of them. And
I'm gonna have to do something. I'm gonna have to get Red Dog and I'll have to get Coors Extra Gold. And since they seem to have since they kind of have a great flavor, I want to see. I've never had the Red Dog, but I want to get them both and see which one's better, because I know I like Coors Extra Gold. It's delish.
Yeah, that was on my bucket list a few years ago, is to try some of these heritage legacy beers that I remember when I was a youngster. When I watched NFL football games on Sunday afternoon, it was always beer commercials.
Right. Well, that's every year.
Schlitz, Rheingold, Schaefer, and I got to try Schaefer. The one beer to have when you're having more than one. That was their tagline, which you could say that was the original sessionable beer when you're going to drink a few of them.
Right.
And Rheingold, which I think has been discontinued, and a few others. But, and Natty Natural Bohemian used to be the official beer of the Baltimore Orioles baseball club. And I was at Baltimore. I saw an Orioles game one year at the old Horseshoe Stadium in Baltimore. And and the vendors were coming around with Natty Bo. So I remember that as a kid, and I always had a fascination with that brand. Any brands associated with a baseball team, like Old Style, Chicago Cubs, in Pittsburgh, it was Iron City beer.
Wow.
A lot of these beers have connections with a Major League Baseball franchise. And basically, Busch beer you had Busch Stadium in St. Louis. and you have now Miller Park in Milwaukee, Coors Field, Colorado Rockies. There's still that strong connection between alcohol, beer, and sports. I'm just hoping when this pandemic's over, we're going to get around back to the sports. I'm a big sports fan myself.
Well, I heard sports is coming back, but I wonder if it'll ever be the same again.
Well, it won't be the same for a while because this year's schedule will probably affect next year's schedule. So it'll be a while, but get back. But it'll be nice to see some live sporting events again and hear the crack of the bat.
And do you think crowds will be back again in the baseball thing? I mean,
it'll get back over time. Things will get back to normal. It will take some time. You won't be able to snap your finger. And have a comment here from Nini Yorte. I like Coors Extra Gold more than PBR. For me, that's a tough one. I really like the PBR. But the Coors Extra Gold definitely has more of a flavor, more flavor.
Sure does.
PBR has a little more character with that. The proprietary yeast they use, the Carlsberg yeast gives it that little dry white wine note. That would be very interesting to do a side-by-side between those two.
Awesome beans, William.
And another comment, the Heilemann Old Style, I went to their website, the beer locator. I found that beer was much closer to me than I had anticipated. Back in 2016, when the Chicago Cubs were playing in the World Series, I went and got a 12-pack of the Heilemann Old Style and drank it while the Cubs played. And they went on to beat the Cleveland Indians in the 7-game World Series. At that time, I also had a 12-pack of the Carling Black Label, which used to be brewed in Cleveland. So I had both beers to represent both cities. So I was drinking both of them during the games.
Wow, that's a very awesome.
The Carling Black Label was brewed in Cleveland in an old Peerless auto plant that had been abandoned. So it has the Carling Black Label has strong roots in the state of Ohio, where Heilemann's was a Chicago-based beer. But when the Cubs made the World Series in 2016, the beer was selling out throughout the Midwest because the Cubs have a strong regional following in the states of Iowa, Nebraska, the Midwest. And in places like Iowa, the Heilemann's Old Style was selling out. They couldn't keep it on the shelves, which was nice to see that people still remembered it as the beer of the Cubs, because nowadays with the licensing agreements, most of the big breweries like AB InBev and Mills, they are the quote-unquote official beer of the baseball team, although they don't have the long-term historical connection with the brews like some of these do. So it's nice to see that people remember the Heilemann's and went out and bought it. I think, here's a comment, I think the Black Label is still in print. It's just available in select markets. And when I say select, I emphasize select, because when I found it, it was by total accident. I was on a road trip that summer in Columbus, Ohio. I went into a Kroger store near the campus of Ohio State University. Lo and behold, I see a 12-pack of Carling Black Label. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
That burnt orange, red container, red and black. And I picked it up, and it happened to be fresh, which was a bonus, and I grabbed it and ran. I got to get this. And like I said, it was about the time that the World Series was about to start. So I had Heilemann Old Style, and I had Carling Black Label. And I drank both of those during the World Series. And the Cubs won 7 games. They came back to Cleveland and won the last 2 games, as best I remember, and poured it out in the 7th game. For their first, that broke the jinx with the Cubs winning the World Series that year, which is very exciting. I'm not a Cubs fan per se, but I was glad to see them, for all the long-suffering fans they have, to see them finally bring home the World Series for guys like Bill Murray, the late, great Harry Carey, all the Cubs fans. It was great to see.
Nice.
But we'll wrap it up here. I enjoyed chatting about beer. I held on a few minutes here after the Smackdown was over. But appreciate everyone, people commenting here. And look forward to the next one when I come up with my next one. And still, like I said, I've got a few other things on my plate. The Final Four Ale tournament. I'm also doing some just hangouts, which anybody can join if you have an ale. It's what's ailing you, ailing you. So just bring an ale. Another idea I had was the beer elevator. To do a series starting with 4% beers, move to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bring a beer in the 4% range, then 5, 6, 7, and just do that.
That's a good series too.
Yeah,
Nice.
I was thinking about that. First one would be like 4% to 4.9. Then you go 5% to 5.9. Then a 6% beer, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's like the beer escalator. You're moving on up. I don't know, Alex, if you remember the TV comedy series, The Jeffersons.
Yeah, I've never seen it, but I've heard of them.
Moving on up to the east side to a deluxe apartment in the sky. George Jefferson, who was the nemesis of Archie Bunker, and that was a spinoff. They got their own series. I used to love to watch those shows.
Oh, wait a minute. I think the Jeffersons was the neighbor of Archie Bunker. Yeah.
And yeah, it was. And they got their own series in a spinoff.
Right.
Wheezy. Yeah, Wheezy. Yeah, oh, Wheezy. I watched those.
Now, did Archie Bunker ever come in the spinoff though? I've never, obviously.
No, I don't think so. But Archie drank a lot of beer. You know, he was, and Edith always brought him a beer after he got off work. You know, and All in the Family, I think, it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. It was ahead of its time. They were taking on topics, some controversial topics at the time, but I thought they gave it was a fair. The way they presented it was in a fair manner, and some very good shows.
You just said that Archie Bunker sends his neighbor the beer. So does he do it in the spinoff?
I'm saying he drank beer a lot, Archie, because being a working, a 9-to-5 guy, worked at the plant. The first thing they come home is grab a cold beer.
Oh, okay.
It's when the whistle blows, they head home and drink a beer. One thing I was looking the other night, I was looking at some old beer commercials on TV. Busch Beer had some commercials done by the Flintstones. Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but I didn't know they did beer commercials.
They did a whole series of Busch Beer commercials.
Wow.
So they're finished working all day in the gravel pit. They want to go to the local hangout watering hole after riding their dinosaur and grab a couple of Busch beers. Those are funny.
Nice.
But it's all that working man's ethic. A lot of these beers are connected to.
Well, but the working man should still go on like this.
Absolutely, there'll always be a place for malt liquors, adjunct lagers. They will never go away because there's always a place for a beer which you're not contemplating it, you're not really overanalyzing, you're just drinking it. It's refreshment, it's crisp, clean, refreshing, and there'll always be a place for that. But anyway, I want to thank the commenters tonight for hanging with me to do the Smackdown. And until we meet again, bottoms up and don't spill a drop. Have a good weekend, everybody.